There's a silent killer that destroys potential before it ever gets noticed. It kills opportunity, respect, and even self-belief, and most people never realize it's happening to them. It's not lack of intelligence. It's not bad luck. It's not even poverty itself. It's the appearance of poverty, the look, the energy, the signal that tells the world you are small, powerless, and invisible. Because whether we like it or not, the world doesn't treat you by who you are. It treats you by who you look like. You could be the smartest person in the room, the hardest worker, the most creative soul. But if you look poor, you've already lost the game before it even begins. And here's the truth that Machiavelli understood 500 years ago. Power doesn't live in truth. Power lives in perception. If you look weak, people will believe you are weak. If you look desperate, people will treat you as desperate. But if you look powerful, even when you have nothing, people will bend the world around you. That's not magic, that's psychology. And it has ruled human behavior since the beginning of civilization. Think back to ancient times, the courts of kings, the palaces of rulers, the fabric you wore, the way you carried your shoulders, the tone of your voice. Those things could determine your destiny. One silk robe could open doors to power, while one stain on your tunic could seal your fate as a nobody. And you may think that was the past. The world has changed. No, it hasn't. We've just replaced crowns and robes with suits, shoes, and signals. The modern uniforms of status. We're still ruled by perception, we still judge in seconds, and we still bow, consciously or not, to the illusion of power. So when I say never look poor, I'm not talking about faking riches, I'm not talking about chasing luxury. I'm talking about controlling perception, learning how to project strength, calmness, and control, even when your wallet is empty, because appearance is the first language of power. Before you open your mouth, before you shake a hand, before you prove anything, your presence already tells a story. And if that story says, I am struggling, I have no control, I am beneath you, the world will believe it, and it will bury you there. But if that story says, I am calm, I am disciplined, I am in control of myself, the world believes that too. You see, humans are wired to follow strength and avoid weakness. When we sense someone is struggling, we step back. When we sense someone is in control, we lean in. That's the brutal law of perception. So what happens when you look poor? People stop listening. They stop respecting. They stop seeing your value. You can be full of wisdom, but they'll talk over you. You can be loyal, but they'll use you. You can be gifted, but they'll overlook you because you look powerless. That's why Machiavelli warned, never appear weak. Because once people see you as weak, every word you speak loses its weight. Think about this in your own life. Have you ever walked into a room and felt invisible? You tried to speak, but no one cared. You tried to explain your worth, but no one listened. You left thinking, if they only knew who I really am. But they didn't, and they never will. Because they judge the cover, not the content. That's what looking poor does. It blinds the world to your value. The tragedy? Most people respond the wrong way. They explain more. They talk more. They overshare, hoping someone will see their worth. But here's the cruel twist. The more you explain yourself, the more desperate you appear. And desperation, that scent of need, is the strongest smell of poverty. So what do you do instead? You master the art of presence. You stop telling people your worth and start showing it through silence, control, and image. You speak calmly, not to prove something, but to reveal control. You dress intentionally, not for vanity, but for strategy. You move slowly, not lazily, but with purpose. Because power isn't loud. Power is quiet, composed, and confident. It doesn't chase attention, it commands it. When you understand this, you stop begging for respect. You make people give it to you without a word. Imagine walking into a room dressed cleanly, not expensive, but sharp. You stand tall, you breathe slow, and you speak as if time bends for you. Everyone around you feels it. They don't know what it is, but they sense something different. That's perception at work. That's the first layer of power, because when you stop looking poor, the world stops treating you like you're poor. And that's where the real transformation begins. So before we go deeper, before we talk about how to build that image, how to project confidence, and how to make people believe you have power even when you don't, remember this: the world doesn't care about your truth. It cares about your performance. Your appearance is your first act of strategy. Your presence is your weapon. And if you wield it right, it can open doors that money never could. Because in the theater of power, you don't win by being real, you win by being believed. Let's dive deeper into the truth that most people never want to face. The truth Machiavelli understood centuries ago. People don't follow truth, they follow perception. You could be right, honest, hardworking, and talented. But if you look weak, the world will not care. Because human nature doesn't respond to truth. It responds to signals. And the strongest signal of all is the appearance of power. Pause, slower tone. Every time you step into a room, before you say a single word, the human brain performs a silent judgment. A lightning-fast calculation that decides how much you're worth. It looks at your clothes, your posture, your facial expression, your energy. It picks up on micro details. Your voice tone, your calmness, the way you move your eyes, and in less than 1 second, it decides, is this person higher than me or lower? Do I follow or do I dismiss? That's the brutal truth of human psychology. And this snap judgment, this instant sorting of dominance and submission, has been shaping our behavior since the dawn of time. In ancient tribes, survival depended on hierarchy. If you followed a strong leader, you lived. If you followed a weak one, you died. Our brains evolved to sense strength before words, to scan faces, bodies, and tone for clues of power or weakness. So when you walk into a meeting or a date or a negotiation, every person in that room is scanning you with the same ancient instinct. They're not thinking, is he nice or is she smart? They're thinking, is this person powerful enough to follow or not? And that's why looking poor is so dangerous. Because when you look poor, you trigger the same ancient signal of weakness. You don't just look broke, you look vulnerable. And humans instinctively distance themselves from vulnerability. Here's something Machiavelli wrote in The Prince. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Why? Because fear and respect are built on the illusion of power. Love fades, sympathy fades, but the image of strength endures. In the modern world, that illusion doesn't come from armies or crowns. It comes from the way you present yourself. If you walk in calm, composed, and confident, people assume you have value. If you walk in frantic, loud, and sloppy, people assume you don't. They don't even question it, it's automatic. Here's a psychological experiment that reveals this perfectly. When two people have a conversation, researchers found that the person who moves less, who stays still, speaks slowly, and pauses between words, is perceived as more powerful. Why? Because stillness signals control, and control signals dominance. Now compare that to the person who fidgets, gestures too much, laughs nervously, or rushes their speech. They're seen as desperate for approval, and desperation always looks poor. You see, energy speaks before language. Poor energy shouts. Rich energy whispers. Poor energy chases attention. Rich energy makes others seek it. Poor energy explains. Rich energy lets silence do the talking. This is why some people can walk into a room and immediately change the atmosphere. They don't need to announce anything. They don't need to prove anything. Their energy alone shifts how everyone else behaves. That's what happens when you master perception. You stop chasing validation, and validation starts chasing you. And here's the key. You don't need money to do this. You just need discipline. You need control over 3 things: your body, your voice, and your time. Your body tells the world if you are in control of yourself. If you slouch, if you move nervously, if you look uncertain, you signal weakness. But if you stand tall, breathe slowly, and move with intention, you signal authority. Your voice tells the world if you believe in your words. When you speak too fast or too loud, it sounds like you're fighting to be heard. But when you speak slowly, clearly, and calmly, it sounds like everyone should already be listening. And finally, your time tells the world what you value. Poor men chase time. They rush. They overstay. They linger, desperate for attention. Powerful men control time. They arrive deliberately. They leave decisively. Even silence becomes their ally. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand." People believe what they see more than what they hear. So if you look poor, you can shout all you want. No one will believe you. But if you look powerful, you can whisper, and everyone will lean in. That's the paradox of perception. Now think about your life. How many times have you been overlooked? Not because you lacked skill, but because you lacked signal. How many times did someone else get chosen? Not because they were better, but because they looked better prepared, more composed, more confident. This is what destroys most potential before it ever blooms. The illusion of poverty, the look of weakness, kills opportunity. But here's the beautiful truth. You can change that today. You can learn to project power long before you possess it. You can use perception as armor. You can use appearance as a tool. That's what powerful people have always done. Kings, conquerors, CEOs. They all mastered the same principle. Appear strong, first be strong later. Because once the world believes in your strength, it starts giving you opportunities that build real strength. When you master your appearance, you reshape how others treat you. When you reshape how others treat you, you reshape how you see yourself. And when you reshape how you see yourself, you reshape your destiny. That's the psychology of power. That's why you must never look poor. Because perception doesn't just decide how others treat you, it decides how you treat yourself. And the moment you start looking powerful, even when you're not, your mind begins to believe it. And that belief is the seed from which real power grows. Let's talk about symbols, because power is never random. It's built, displayed, and protected through symbols. Every empire, every leader, every person who ever commanded attention, they all understood this ancient truth. Power must be seen to be believed. You see, people don't follow logic. They follow images. They don't obey wisdom. They obey presence. They don't respect truth. They respect symbols of truth. And that's the secret most people never learn. A king wears a crown not because he needs jewelry, but because the crown creates the image of divine authority. A judge wears a robe not because it's comfortable, but because it separates them from everyone else. A soldier wears a uniform not to look pretty, but to embody strength, discipline, and unity. These are not clothes. They are psychological tools, and they control how others perceive reality. When Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he didn't just talk about ruling nations. He talked about ruling perception. He warned that appearances are not optional. They are the foundation of power itself, because humans by nature are visual creatures. We trust our eyes before our minds. We see before we think. If someone looks organized, we assume they are competent. If someone looks calm, we assume they are confident. If someone looks wealthy, we assume they are powerful. Even when we know appearances can deceive us, our brains still fall for them. Why? Because evolution trained us to respond to symbols of power as a survival instinct. In primitive times, the person with the best tools, the strongest posture, the cleanest appearance, was more likely to lead, to protect, to survive. So over thousands of years, our minds were programmed to follow symbols of strength and avoid symbols of weakness. That programming still rules us today. The brand logos, the suits, the cars, the phones, they're all modern symbols of authority. Even silence, confidence, and composure have become symbols. When someone walks into a room with measured confidence, not arrogance, not noise, people feel it. That's not luck. That's symbolic language. But here's what most people get wrong. They think symbols are fake. They think dressing well or controlling images, pretending. No, it's strategy. It's psychological warfare. It's Machiavellian mastery. Because symbols don't lie. They communicate. They send messages before words ever arrive. When you walk into a job interview with a sharp outfit, straight posture, calm voice, and steady gaze, you're sending a silent message that says, "I'm in control of myself." And that message is worth more than any resume. You see, authority is not given. It's perceived. People follow those who appear to have control. They listen to those who appear certain. They trust those who look like they know where they're going. So when you never look poor, you're not just trying to impress others. You're speaking the oldest human language there is, the language of symbols. Think about religions. Every belief system in history uses symbols. Robes, colors, hand gestures, rituals, architecture. Why? Because the human mind understands power through visuals, not logic. A man standing on a street corner yelling wisdom is ignored. A man standing on a marble platform, wearing white robes with candles behind him, suddenly becomes a prophet. Nothing about his words changed. Only the symbols did. That's the power of perception. Now here's where it becomes practical. You must build your personal symbols of power. This doesn't mean luxury or vanity. It means intentional image. Ask yourself, what does my appearance say about me before I speak? What energy do I radiate when I walk into a room? What small details, my shoes, my grooming, my tone, are signaling strength or weakness? Because every detail sends a message, and the smallest inconsistencies destroy credibility. You don't need expensive clothes. You need clean ones. You don't need to show off wealth. You need to show discipline. You don't need to buy a Rolex. You need to move like time belongs to you. When people see precision, order, and calm, they see power. And power attracts loyalty, opportunity, and respect. That's why Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." He understood that success doesn't depend on what's inside you. It depends on what people see in you. And when your appearance communicates control, people assume you are in control, even if you're not. This is what the greats understood. Steve Jobs wore the same black turtleneck every day, not because he didn't care about fashion, but because it became his symbol. It told the world, "I'm focused, minimal, obsessed with design." Michael Jordan wore his suit and gold hoop earrings, not to show wealth, but to project swagger and dominance. It was a uniform of authority. Even military generals know this. Medals, clean uniforms, boots shine to perfection. They are not decoration. They are symbols of discipline, of respect, of control. So, ask yourself, what symbols do you wear? What do your clothes, your room, your social media, your voice say about you? Because whether you notice it or not, the world is always watching and it's always judging. You can complain that it's unfair, or you can learn the game. You can reject symbols, or you can master them. And once you master them, life becomes easier. Doors open faster, people listen longer. Opportunities come to you instead of you chasing them. Because in a world ruled by perception, those who control symbols control everything, so never look poor. Not in your clothes, not in your posture, not in your energy. Because the moment you do, you surrender your most powerful weapon, the ability to shape what people believe about you. And in the game of power, belief is everything. Here's one of the hardest truths in life. Before you actually have power, you must look like you do. Before you're respected, you must behave as if you already are. Before people believe in you, you must act like belief is already yours. This is the paradox of success. You must appear powerful long before you actually become powerful. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said, "To be feared is safer than to be loved." He wasn't talking about cruelty. He was talking about presence, about the way others perceive your strength before they see your results. So how do you do it? How do you build the illusion of power, ethically, intelligently, strategically, before you actually possess it? The answer lies in mastering 3 dimensions of perception: silence, control, and certainty. These are the building blocks of authority. They cost nothing, but they change everything. Silence, the sound of power. The poor man speaks to be heard. The powerful man speaks only when it's necessary. When you talk too much, you reveal need. You reveal anxiety. You reveal weakness. But when you speak less, when your words are chosen with precision, people lean in because silence is rare and rarity is valuable. You've probably noticed it before. You're in a group conversation. Everyone's talking, laughing, filling the air with noise. And then someone quiet enters. They say nothing. They just stand there calm, composed. Suddenly, the energy changes. People glance over. They wonder who that person is. That's the magnetic pull of silence. When you master it, you control the rhythm of every interaction. People start to earn your attention instead of you fighting for theirs. Machiavelli understood this. He advised rulers to be mysterious, to speak rarely, and only when words would serve a purpose. Because silence forces people to imagine your thoughts, and imagination always creates more power than explanation. When you stop explaining yourself, you start commanding respect. 2. Control. The posture of power. Power is not loud. It's not about dominating others. It's about dominating yourself. Control is the visible evidence of inner strength. Your body, your tone, your reactions. These are the signals of mastery. Watch anyone truly powerful. They don't flinch. They don't overreact. They don't rush. Whether it's a billionaire in a boardroom or a general in a war room, their faces are still. Their voices steady. Their movements precise. That stillness is not arrogance. It's discipline. It tells the world, I am not moved by chaos. I am not controlled by emotion. I am the calm inside the storm. And that's why people follow them. Because control breeds trust. If you can't control your reactions, if anger, insecurity, or fear leaks out through your words or gestures, others subconsciously assume you can't handle power. But when you master your expression, your tone, your movements, you project the illusion that you can handle anything. And remember, the illusion often comes first. When you act like you're in control, your brain starts to believe it. Your emotions follow your posture. Confidence grows from repetition, not luck. So even if you feel nervous, slow your breathing. Even if you feel small, stand tall. Even if you feel uncertain, speak calmly. Your mind will eventually align with your body. That's not pretending. That's programming. 3. Certainty, the aura of power. Now we come to the most important piece. Power is not about knowing everything. It's about appearing certain even when you don't. Certainty is the signal that says, follow me. Because humans crave direction. We are drawn to people who move with conviction. Uncertainty is contagious, but so is confidence. When you speak or move with hesitation, people sense it instantly. When you speak with calm, deliberate assurance, even if your idea is still forming, people believe in you, not the idea. And that belief changes outcomes. The world doesn't reward truth first, it rewards confidence first. Truth comes later. That's why most great leaders began with the illusion of power, not the reality of it. They spoke with conviction long before they had results to prove it. Alexander the Great was just a teenager when he began commanding armies, but he acted as though he'd been born to lead Napoleon. Before his first victory, dressed, moved, and commanded with the posture of a conqueror. Steve Jobs, before Apple was worth anything, walked into rooms of investors with absolute certainty. Wearing confidence like armor, none of them were pretending. They were manifesting. Because that's the secret. Perception always precedes reality. The illusion of power creates opportunities, and those opportunities create real power. Imagine two people walking into a room. One looks nervous, glancing around, adjusting clothes, speaking quickly. The other walks in slowly, head high, silent, observant. They may have the same goals, the same dreams, but the world reacts differently. The first is treated as someone seeking approval. The second is treated as someone to be approved by. That's the difference between looking poor and looking powerful. One chases attention, the other commands it. Now, I want you to understand something crucial. Projecting strength doesn't mean being fake. It means embodying the version of yourself that you intend to become. You're not lying. You're rehearsing your destiny. You're telling your mind and the world, this is who I am becoming. Treat me accordingly. Because the world doesn't wait for your transformation. It reacts to what you show it today. And when you start walking, speaking, and carrying yourself as someone in control, opportunities start recognizing you before success does. That's the illusion of power. It's not manipulation, it's strategic evolution. You might not have wealth yet. You might not have recognition yet. You might still be fighting to get noticed. But you can look like someone worth noticing. You can act like someone worth following. You can move like someone who already knows their path. And when you do, the world begins to reshape itself around you. People treat you differently. Doors open quietly. Conversations shift. Because you've changed the first rule of perception, you no longer ask for respect. You command it. So remember this. Before you gain power, you must embody power. Before you're respected, you must look respectable. Before people believe in you, you must believe in yourself enough to act as if it's already true. That's not arrogance. That's preparation. And that's the timeless art of Machiavellian strategy. Not deception, but direction. Because the illusion of power is how real power begins. Power is a strange thing. It's like fire. When controlled, it gives warmth and light. But when uncontrolled, it burns everything, including the one who holds it. And that's why so many people rise, only to fall. They mistake confidence for arrogance. They mistake self-belief for superiority. They stop managing perception and start feeding their ego. That's how power is lost, quietly, gradually, invisibly. You see, the same illusion that helps you rise can also destroy you if you forget the rule behind it, because power is never truly owned. It's loaned to you by perception. The world gives it to you when it believes in your strength, and it takes it back the moment you stop earning that belief. That's what Machiavelli meant when he wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." He understood something deeper, that true power isn't about domination. It's about discipline. It's about maintaining the illusion without losing the humanity beneath it. Confidence is rooted in control of self. Arrogance is rooted in control over others. Confidence attracts. Arrogance repels. Confidence speaks softly. It doesn't need to shout. Arrogance raises its voice because it fears being ignored. Confidence is built on silence and proof. Arrogance is built on noise and insecurity. And here's the subtle danger. When you start looking powerful, the world begins to test you. It will flatter you, tempt you, and whisper that you're special. If you believe that lie, you lose control. Because power isn't meant to be shown off, it's meant to be guarded. The moment you begin using power to humiliate, to flex, or to remind others of their place, you're no longer powerful. You're insecure. And insecurity always reveals itself, no matter how expensive the clothes or how loud the tone. Machiavelli warned princes about this mistake. He said a ruler must appear firm, but not cruel, feared, but not hated, respected, but never resented. Because hate is the poison that collapses authority from within. So how do you stay balanced? How do you use the illusion of power without letting it consume you? You follow 3 rules. Real confidence has direction. It's not random. When you project strength, it should serve something. A vision, a mission. A standard. People respect power that's anchored in purpose. If your image of control, your calm, your composure, if it's built around something meaningful, it becomes inspiring. But if it's used only to elevate yourself, it becomes intimidating. And intimidation never lasts. It breeds resistance. So your first task is to ask yourself, why do I want power? What do I want to build with it? Because when power becomes about something greater than yourself, you can project it without arrogance. You're no longer saying, look at me. You're saying, follow me. And that small difference changes everything. The greatest mistake of the newly powerful is celebration. They reveal too much, too soon. They show off, gloat, or speak as if they've arrived. But those who truly understand power know that silence is the ultimate crown. Machiavelli would say, appear confident but never satisfied. Because the moment you look like you've stopped improving, people begin to test you. Think of it like a lion in the wild. The strongest lions don't roar all day. They observe. They save their energy, move deliberately, and strike only when necessary. That's how you maintain control. Silence in power doesn't mean weakness, it means focus. It means letting results speak while you move strategically behind the scenes. Every word you say while on top becomes ammunition for your downfall. Every reaction you give becomes a signal for others to attack. So speak less, win quietly, and let mystery guard your authority. Once you start projecting strength, you will attract admiration and envy. And envy is dangerous. Weak people will try to provoke you, question you, challenge you, not because they care about truth, but because they want to feel powerful for a moment, and here's where most fall. They fight unnecessary battles to prove superiority, but true power doesn't compete, it chooses. You must learn to walk away from fools without flinching. Don't waste your energy explaining yourself to those beneath your understanding. Don't correct small minds. Don't argue with gossip. Don't defend your status, because every time you explain, you step down from your throne. And kings do not explain, they decide. When you respond to envy, you validate it. When you ignore it, you dominate it. This is what separates power from arrogance. The arrogant man needs to be seen. The powerful man needs only to be felt. Arrogance screams, power whispers, arrogance demands recognition. Power creates recognition naturally. And when you understand that balance, when you can look strong without being loud, when you can command respect without forcing it, you have reached the highest form of influence. There's something poetic about true power. It's not heavy, it's not desperate. It moves quietly, like a shadow in control of the light. It's the CEO who listens more than he speaks. It's the leader who walks calmly through chaos. It's the man or woman who doesn't need to prove, because they know. That's confidence. That's presence. That's the discipline of appearance. And when you master that, when you project power that uplifts instead of crushes, people don't just respect you, they trust you. They follow you willingly because they feel something rare. You don't look powerful because you're pretending. You look powerful because you earn control over yourself. That's the balance between confidence and arrogance. Confidence says, I am ready. Arrogance says, I am better. And one builds empires, while the other destroys them. So never look poor, but also never look proud. Never appear desperate, but also never appear untouchable. Carry yourself with quiet mastery, the kind of presence that doesn't shout for power, but radiates it. Because in the end, true strength is not about proving anything. It's about being so composed, so disciplined, so centered, that the world feels your power without you having to say a word. Here's the final truth. You've learned how to control appearance, how to command respect, how to project strength. Even when you have nothing, but there's one last step, the most powerful step of all. You must become the person you pretend to be, because illusion is a weapon, but transformation is the victory. At first, this journey begins with performance. You fix your posture, you sharpen your look, you train your voice, you practice stillness, you control your presence. You project the image of someone composed, confident, untouchable. But over time, something strange begins to happen. That performance starts changing you. That illusion starts reprogramming you. You stop acting like power and start feeling it. You stop pretending to be in control and start being in control, because perception doesn't just influence others, it rewires you. That's the final layer of Machiavelli's hidden truth. When you control appearance long enough, appearance becomes reality. Think about it. Every great man or woman who ever rose from nothing began with a story in their mind, an image of who they wanted to be. That image was their shield when they had no armor. It was their strength when they had no power. It was their compass when the world called them small. Julius Caesar once said, "If you must break the law, do it to seize power. In all other cases, observe it." But what he really meant was this. Sometimes to change your reality, you must first defy it. When you're poor, invisible, overlooked, The world tells you, know your place, but Machiavelli whispers something different. Appear as if you already belong to the place they say you can't reach. That's not delusion, that's design, because perception is not a lie. It's a rehearsal for the truth you're building. So when you wake up and dress sharply, even if your closet is small, you're not pretending you're training your mind to match your future. When you walk into a room with calm control, even if you're nervous inside, you're teaching your body the language of power. When you stop chasing attention, when you hold your silence, when you value your presence, you're shaping the version of yourself the world will one day believe in completely. And once that belief takes root, it becomes unstoppable. This is how empires are built from nothing, how leaders rise from poverty, how nobodies become legends. It starts with a mask, but the mask, if worn with discipline, becomes your new skin. Because the illusion you build today is the reality you step into tomorrow. Every time you look composed, your brain starts to associate that composure with identity. Every time you speak with calmness, your mind registers confidence as normal. Every time you act with restraint, your body learns patience as power. And over months, over years, those little acts of control turn into natural habits. And those habits create character. And character creates destiny. That's how the illusion becomes truth. So don't fear pretending. Don't fear acting as if the weak mock what they don't understand. They call it fake. But the wise know it's training. A man who trains his body becomes strong. A man who trains his presence becomes powerful. Because appearance is not about deception, it's about direction. It's a declaration to the universe. This is who I am becoming. When you stop looking poor, even before you stop being poor, you begin a chain reaction. People treat you differently. You see yourself differently. And the world starts to reshape around that difference. That's how transformation begins. Silently, invisibly, from within. Let's call it what it is. The Machiavellian ascent. The journey from poverty to power, from invisibility to influence. There are 3 stages. Stage 1, the illusion. You begin by mastering the surface. You learn the art of appearance, calmness, composure, discipline, silence, sharpness. You learn to look like power before you have it. You build the mask. This is the stage of control. Stage 2, the perception. The world starts responding to your new signals. Doors open, people listen, opportunities appear. You're treated as someone of value because you now look like someone of value. This is the stage of influence. Stage 3, the transformation. And finally, something irreversible happens. You no longer need the mask. You've become what you once pretended to be. The illusion has turned into identity, and at that moment, the game changes forever. This is the stage of power. That's how every legend is made. They didn't wait for power to find them. They acted like power until the world had no choice but to agree. It's how a young Napoleon, broke and unknown, carried himself like an emperor and became one. It's how a young Rockefeller, working as a clerk, dressed in black suits like a banker until real bankers began treating him as an equal. It's how every self-made person rewrites fate, by performing the role until reality catches up. You can't fake greatness, but you can build it through discipline. And discipline always begins with appearance. When you look in the mirror and see a person of order, of calm, of control, your mind starts aligning your actions to that image. And every day you live in alignment, you move one step closer to becoming unstoppable. That's the secret the world hides in plain sight. They say, be yourself. But Machiavelli says, build yourself. And building begins with appearance. So from this moment on, stop thinking of perception as something shallow. Think of it as sacred, because the way you look, walk, and speak is not just for others, it's a message to your own mind. A declaration that says, I am no longer ruled by poverty, fear, or weakness. I am ruled by control. And control, my friend, is the root of power. When you master your presence, you master your perception. When you master your perception, you master your destiny. That is the Machiavellian transformation. That is how you turn illusion into influence, and influence into reality. So remember, Never look poor, even if you are. Because every time you refuse to look weak, you build the strength to stop being weak. Every time you carry yourself like power, you teach the world to treat you like power. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll wake up and find that the mask you once wore has become the man you are. That's not pretending. That's evolution. Because perception, when mastered, is not a lie. It's the first chapter of your truth.